UFC Vegas 111 just recently wrapped up, and I'm going to recap the entire card. Main event, Gabriel Bonfim, hell of a performance. But there was some debate whether or not it was an early stoppage. We'll talk about that as we get to it, but I am going to run through the first fight of the night all the way up to the main event. Overall, Apex card, really good one. 2 weeks in a row, Apex cards delivering fun fights and just genuinely an enjoyable time. So make sure you guys hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. Let's get into the recap. First fight in the card, Zachary Reese versus Jackson McVey. Started off testy for Zachary Reese. McVey was ripping him with elbows in the clinch, caused a nasty gash over the eye. It seemed as though potentially Zach Reese was on his way to getting TKO'd. Low shot. McVey hits him in the nuts. Zach Reese took a few minutes to recover. Kind of more of the same for the first 30 seconds or so. But then Reese started landing some big punches over the top, catching some elbows on McVey of his own, and then eventually finishing the round with the takedown, getting on top. And that's where we saw the Jackson McVey deficiency exploited. His grappling skills are subpar. Muay Thai game is good. He's nasty in the clinch. Take him down and you get on top, he struggles. Zach Reese was able to get a second round submission, took him down a lot easier come round number two, a lot sooner. A minute 38 seconds in, fight is over with the sub, and he just blitzed through Jackson McVey's bottom game. It was, I don't want to say non-existent, but like couldn't really do anything. Zach Reese got him down and just mauled him. Submission in round two and a short notice fill-in for Zach Reese. This works out well. Now, of course, he finished the fight with a nasty gash over his eye, and he definitely got tested big time in the first round. But it turned out to be a good decision to jump in on less than a week's notice and fight against Jackson McVey, because you're probably not going to take on many guys in this middleweight division whose ground skills are that mediocre. Now, Zachary Reese is an interesting player at this point in this division because he's been around at 185 for a bit now. Like, I feel like we've seen a good amount of evidence of Zach Reese showing some improvements, but still with some technical flaws. Debut was in 2024, right? He's 4-2 and 1 no contest in the UFC now. He's got some experience. I'm asking myself the question, though. Where does a guy like him go after this? Because you have to look at level of opposition rate. You're taking on a McVey. It's not a huge win. And I kind of like to ponder the thoughts with this division that, has a lot of middleweights. But I feel as though with a win against Todorovic by decision and then a nice submission finish here, I kind of like the idea of him fighting the winner of Antonio Trocoli and Mansour Abdul-Malik. I'd like to see him fight against Mansour Abdul-Malik, especially if he gets past Trocoli, which he should. And if somehow Trocoli wins, that's fine. I'd watch that fight. But I think Reese would also be like a good check mark test for a guy like Abdul-Malik, assuming he passes Trocoli's test, which he definitely should. I mean, Trayshawn Gore strangled him. Just an idea. I think Zach Reese could potentially find himself taking on the decent prospect in Mansour Abdul-Malik as long as he gets past the Trocoli sometime 2024. That cut's going to need a bit of a recovery, and Mansour Abdul-Malik's supposed to fight about a month from now, December 6th. I think it's kind of a perfect timeline, and I think assuming that Mansour Abdul-Malik wins, it's also probably the perfect opponent for him. I was also thinking if they give him Battle Giraffe Cam Ralston, he might be looking at the lights, man. For Jackson McVey, I got to keep it a buck with you guys. I think rebook the Valentine fight or potentially a fight against Nick Klein, but 0-2 in the UFC, definitely a rough start for him. And the grappling is suspect, man. That is too much of a red flag now. Too much of a red flag. And a lot of fighters going to look to exploit that. Good win for Zach Reese, though he was tested a bit. McVey's got dog in him, but he has to shore up some holes. Still young at 26. We'll see what he can do. Second fight in the card, Daniel Marcos, Miles Johns. I was happy about this performance from the side of Daniel Marcos. Miles Johns is no easy guy to finish. Miles Johns had lost 2 straight fights coming into this, but 2 straight fights where he's had okay moments, especially against Matsumoto. He lost a rather close split decision. Marcos taking this fight on short notice, coming off the first pro loss of his career against Montel Jackson. It was his shake into the top 15. Loses, unfortunate. Now sent back to the second fight of the night on an Apex prelim card. This fight should have been on the main card. This was a high-level bantamweight fight. Daniel Marcos looked as good as I had ever seen by a long shot. A lot of people were hyping up Miles Johns' wrestling, and I had said pre-fight, I think he's got overrated wrestling. And seeing this fight here, I think Marcos has very underrated wrestling. He was able to out wrestle Miles John, took him down 3 times, controlled him a bit on the ground, ultimately ends up getting the submission win to close it out with some good striking as well. He looked sharp in the kickboxing range, catching Johns with some decent straight punches, some decent kicks. Nothing crazy in the stand-up department, but better punches from the side of Daniel Marcos on the feet and better kicks for him. Miles Johns tried to wrestle a bit, 1 takedown attempt, stifled. Clinch work, stifled. Wild gunslinging boxing, stifled. Daniel Marcos bounced back in a big way. This was a solid W. I think it's one of those W's that goes down as underappreciated because you look at, Miles Johns' resume, and if, you're not a hardcore, maybe you don't know of Miles Johns, like he's had a good UFC run, fallen upon hard times, but he had a 3-fight win streak put together. Like there was good performances in the mix, and if you include the no contest, 4-fight unbeaten streak, he had looked solid in his past couple, and then, ran into Felipe Lima, close with John Matsumoto, who's a very good prospect. And then to see Daniel Marcos beat him like this, I was like, damn. Miles Johns is in a rough spot. Daniel Marcos, though, he's in a good spot. He's of a higher caliber. He's very close to top 15 level. I feel like he's in one of those spots where it's like, if he wins one more, it's hard to deny him a chance to break into the top 15. I kind of love the idea of him versus Bryce Mitchell. Now, Bryce Mitchell has a bit more of a name that resonates with the casual audience, so there's a chance the UFC would rather not do that fight, and then we end up not seeing it. But I kind of feel as though that is a very sensible fight to make next for Daniel Marcos. That's one that jumped out to me. I was like, I'd like to see how him and Bryce Mitchell would go. I'd be intrigued by the matchup, to say the least. Don't know for sure if we see it. Obviously, Bryce Mitchell could potentially be fighting against like a Montel Jackson or somebody like that to really break into the top 15. Marcos may end up fighting Jaime Barcelos, who will also fight on this card, and he's on a 4-fight win streak, and he's close to the top 15, 4 wins in a row, but still might need one more to break into it. Remains to be seen. I mean, if they want to give Marcos a chance to break into the top, a fight against Kyler Phillips, who's lost 2 in a row, makes sense, and I think that's winnable for Marcos. Now, I want to talk Miles Johns' career because Miles Johns was scheduled to fight Cody Garbrandt, okay? And that was going to be the big chance for him to really put the streak together, and then it would be like Miles Johns to the top 15. 2 cancellations of that fight, a Lima loss, a Matsumoto loss, and now a Marcos loss. He's lost 3 in a row. I think Miles Johns has done UFC favors in the past, like taking that Cody Gibson fight on very short notice. I think they should do Cody Garbrandt versus Miles Johns. Both guys coming off L's. I think Miles Johns and Cody Garbrandt is kind of a 50-50 fight at this point. Merry early Christmas. I'm intrigued by that fight still. I want to see Miles Johns and Cody Garbrandt get booked. I don't know if they'll do it because both guys have multiple losses in a row. It could be one of those spots where they don't want to match them up against one another, but I kind of feel like now is the perfect time to do it. If not, Patchy Mix, Miles Johns. Those are the options. Those are my 2 options. I like Cody Garbrandt more, but I think Patchy Mix, Miles Johns could also work. UFC could end up going Patchy Mix versus Cody Garbrandt in a complete opposite direction, but that's something that jumped out to me, and I think that's a pretty solid idea from Matchmaker Jay. Nonetheless, Daniel Marcos, swell performance. Next fight on the card. Denise Gomes, Tisha Pennington. Not much to say about this one besides like kind of Gomes showing that she's now developing into a real top 10 contender. Able to outstrike Tisha Pennington, able to out-grapple her, able to outwork her. It was a win clearly for Denise Gomes. I thought at the very worst 29-28, but I thought 30-27 was quite fair. She just outworked her throughout the entire fight, landed bigger shots, was winning the battle of real estate, landed more takedowns, had more control time. Everything kind of went into her favor, man. It wasn't a great fight. It was more of a sparring pace fight, but it says a lot to beat a girl in a fairly dominant fashion, a girl that hadn't really been beaten like that in a long time. Like Tisha Pennington, say what you want about her. Obviously, her performance here was pretty bad, but she had been to split decisions with Mackenzie Dern, split decisions with Tabitha Ritchie. She had kind of been, low-key known as the queen of surviving the split decision. I mean, if you look at her pro fighting career, she had some unanimous decisions back in 2019 and before, but in the 2020 era for herself, it's only been split decision losses. This is the first time she was really handily beaten since the Marina Rodriguez loss back in 2019. Denise Gomes is a good prospect. She's really put it together here. This is 4 wins in a row for her now. Only recent loss is Angela Hill. I feel like Denise Gomes is one to keep an eye on. It's tough to say what direction they go with matchmaking for her because when you look at the, women's top 15, it's like, all right, is it like a Lupi Godinez chance? But Lupi just beat Andrade, and I kind of feel like Denise Gomes is not much of a reward for her after that. I feel like you deserve something bigger. Denise Gomes is currently ranked at number 15. Unfortunately, she may find herself in a spot where she's kind of put in like a kill the prospect matchup, and they do her versus Alexia Thayanara, a fight that I could definitely see her losing. But if they don't go that route, I think it'd be kind of fun to go Jessica Andrade, who currently has no fight scheduled, versus Denise Gomes. I feel as though in some ways, Denise Gomes, not the same as Andrade, not the same power, but similarities in the styles, similarities in the frame. I would like to see her get a chance like that. Maybe an Amanda Ribas fight. Ribas, coming off the loss as of recent to the side. I believe the last fight was Mackenzie Dern, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, no, Tabitha Ritchie, excuse me. Tabitha Ritchie stopped her, but 3 losses in a row. It's like, do you match up the girl on a 4-fight win streak versus a veteran on a 3-fight losing streak? Maybe that's what they do. But just some ideas, man. I kind of love the idea of Gomes versus Andrade, but they might not do it. They might not, but that would be a fight that then puts Gomes amongst the, upper echelon of the women's strawweight division. She would then break into the top. Listen, Patricia, you can keep her around. You cannot. I'm sure we'll see her fight again. I don't know. I mean, they could end up doing Amanda Ribas fight for her. Ribas coming off some L's. Maybe she's pushed down to, someone lower ranked. Maybe they do her versus Ketlin Souza, who's coming off the Pierre Rodriguez loss. Something along those lines. I don't know exactly for Tisha, and I don't think anybody's salivating at the bit. Like, oh man, tell me more about who Tisha should fight next, because underwhelming performance. Josh Hokit versus Max Gimenis. This was easy work. Heavyweight division, absolute scintillating KO. He destroyed the jiu-jitsu fighter. But Max Gimenis did land a really nice leg kick early that knocked Josh Hokit off his feet, and he seemed like he was limping out of the octagon after. But then Hokit just destroyed him with punches. Less than a minute. This was an absolute beatdown. It was like, athletic heavyweight with some upside versus fat heavyweight. I think Max Gimenis is in the wrong era. He seems like a mediocre heavyweight from 2005. And unfortunately, that skill set is really not UFC level in even 2025. As much as we shit talk the heavyweight division and discuss that, the evolution has been a lot thinner than the rest, man. Gimenis looked fucking bad. They cut Hamdi Abdullah Wahab, but Hamdi versus Hokit would probably have been the most sensible fight to set up. Former Olympic wrestler versus 2-time NCAA All-American who's showing power. That would have been a great fight to make, but fortunately we don't have it happen. Now, there was a call out for Josh Hokit. He said, hey, I want to fight against Walter Walker. That is a ballsy call out, but Walter Walker is a top 15 heavyweight, and it's time we stop giving Walter Walker cans. We could do Josh Hokit versus most recent victim of Walter Walker, Louis Sutherland, who's 0-1 in the UFC. I don't hate them matching those two up, regardless of 1-0 in the UFC and 0-1 in the UFC. I think that's a sensible fight. For Max Gimenis, probably somebody like an Austin Lane makes sense for him. Outside of that, I don't know. When Alvin Hines returns from his suspension, or maybe a Sean Sharef, Steven Asplin loser, if they even want to keep him, maybe they give him Alicia Ellison. Yeah, man, Max Gimenis is definitely low on my bar of intrigue for heavyweight prospects. But Josh Hokit is high on the bar. Smaller heavyweight at like 229, but really quick, good hands. I mean, you can keep building him up. They could give him like a Lukas Drezhki, and then he runs through him. Granted, Drezhki beat Walter Walker somehow back in 2024, but it was a different Walter Walker as well. Brando Perisic, Josh Hokit, but do they really want to risk Australia's hyped up prospect versus America's hyped up prospect? I have a theory though, all right? Gable Steveson will arrive in the UFC somewhere in the next 12 months or less. Josh Hokit and Gable Steveson will be a fight that is to be had. And there will be a rivalry between the two of them at some point. Olympic gold medalist wrestler versus a guy that was an NCAA two-time All-American wrestler. Former NFL player, former NFL. You see what I'm saying? Like, I'm kind of thinking it works out beautifully to build a storyline between the two. But the issue is Gable Steveson needs a couple more fights. He's only 1-0 in MMA, and they needed the Game Bred boxing fight or Game Bred boxing, dirty boxing fight. I don't know. We'll see if the UFC signing him just yet, or maybe they're going to make him get a couple more and then bring him on Contender Series. But I do think some point down the line, I'd like to see Hokit versus Gable Steveson, but maybe not in the next fight. Probably not in the next fight. I think it makes sense to go Hokit versus like a Louis Sutherland or something like that, or even a Lukas Drezhki, a guy that he can show out on and keep building up. I like the Vulture Walker call out. I like that he's shooting up the ranks, but they can take their time with a heavyweight in his mid-20s. I don't think that's a bad idea. So, good performance. Definitely one that's getting people talking. Josh Hokit looked good. Let's keep running. Next fight on the card, Mayra Bueno Silva, Jacqueline Cavalcanti. One-sided, as predicted, perfectly. Cavalcanti tuned her up with kickboxing, picked her apart. I don't even understand. Who the fuck? 28, 29, what? I don't know how you give one round to Mayra Bueno Silva. I genuinely don't understand. There is no chance that she won a round in this fight. She was absolutely outstruck the whole time. She was a step behind the entire fight. Couldn't land takedowns. She was frustrated, and she got kickboxed up. Bueno Silva's downfall needs to be studied, man. Goes from world title challenge and hype on her. I'll tell you guys, I'm embarrassed of this. I picked her against Raquel. I didn't pick her here. I ain't been picking her lately, but I picked her against Raquel. Bueno Silva's fallen on hard times. My God, her career is falling apart. And Jacqueline Cavalcanti just, absolutely tuned her up. And looks like the prospect to keep an eye on. She got the build of a world-class contender. She got the striking of a world-class contender. I'm telling you guys right now, Cavalcanti is a baby still. She's going to be a problem in this women's bantamweight division. It's a division that needs talent. And right now, she is the hottest prospect at the weight class. Going out and beating Mayra Bueno Silva, who challenged for the belt at 135, I think there's some respect to be had for her. Like, this is an important W. This is the biggest win of her life. I think with the UFC, you have a different direction you can go down with her. It depends on what they want to do. You could push her fast up the ranks and give her a Yana Santos, who's on a 3-fight winning streak, coming off the Macy Chiasson win. And I think Battle of Good Strikers, that's also a very winnable fight for the young Jacqueline Cavalcanti. But there's a possibility that they want to matchmake her a little bit differently. They give her an Irene Aldana coming back from a layoff off of that Norma Dumont loss. Not to say to screw her sideways in the side of Irene Aldana, but like you pick off a former world title challenger again, who's a little bit older, a little bit over the hill, coming off a layoff. You can kind of just build it better, Obviously, Yana Santos is still a winnable fight for Cavalcanti, but on paper, that looks like a hard matchup if you ask me. Now, for Bueno Silva, dude, she's lost 4 fights in a row. I don't know what she wants to do. At this point, Bueno Silva should fight like Priscilla Cachoeira. And she might get knocked out against Priscilla Cachoeira, but at least she has a big grappling advantage. Or are they like, hey, let's go Bia Mesquita versus Bueno Silva. Let's build a prospect offer. Another prospect to be built off of Bueno Silva. I don't think that's a bad idea either. Because, dude, she's looked like shit lately. Just worse every time we see her. I honestly think she should consider retiring. Good performance for Cavalcanti nonetheless. She looks sharp. Good prospect. Future contender for sure. Barcelos with a big upset over Ricky Simón. Barcelos somehow has turned his career around. He's like in a late prime at 38. He's hit a second peak, man. He looks great. Striking was sharp. Landed some big uppercuts and straight shots. Stopped the wrestling attack of Simón. Was able to do a good job boxing with him and mixing up strikes in the pocket. Barcelos looked fast and explosive. Raoni Barcelos has quietly been making waves right now at 135. And this is why I said earlier, I think that Daniel Marcos and him is actually a really sensible fight, because like the winner would break into the top 15. You see there is a such thing, though, as Dana White privilege. Why? Because Peyton Talbot is facing off against a top-ranked contender. Peyton Talbot got dominated. Peyton Talbot got dominated by Raoni Barcelos. And he's fighting the number 10 guy in the weight class, Henry Cejudo. Barcelos just doesn't have that same level of height. But Barcelos, I mean, on paper, he deserves a chance to break into the rankings. He deserves a big fight. Maybe Rob Font and aging Rob Font and Henry Barcelos makes sense. But him versus Daniel Marcos is also a really sensible fight, but it's a non-top 15 fight. Charles Jourdain surging up, called out Marcus McGee. He's probably fighting in the rankings. Marcos, possibility they want to give him a chance in the rankings. If not, though, Hani Barcelos versus Rob Font. Kind of a double battle of the old guard, but an old guard who's surging versus an old guard who's slipping a little bit. I don't hate that fight at all. And there's a pathway to success for Barcelos. Barcelos could end up almost living up to expectations. I mean, at one point, he was supposed to be like the next Jose Aldo. I remember the early hype on Barcelos. At 38, he's looked as good as ever. And I do think that if you matched him up against Rob Font, he's live to win. I would like to see him get a chance to break into the top 15. Do I think he's going to break into the top 10? Do I think he beats Vinicius Oliveira? No. Do I think he beats Kyler Phillips? Maybe. Do you think he beats Marcus McGee? Probably not, but maybe. But like Rob Font is kind of like low-hanging fruit right there. That's the low-hanging fruit. Potentially they do Barcelos versus Rob Font. Granted, you got Charles Jourdain, you got hot prospects they're trying to build. What I'm saying is the UFC's matchmaking style, they might not be like, oh yeah, we're in the fucking business of hyping up a 38-year-old Hani Barcelos to break into the top 15 when I can give Charles Jourdain a big fight there, right? Or I can do Vinicius Oliveira versus somebody, you know? But Barcelos, he's in a spot where he deserves a shot at the rankings with 4 wins in a row. Probably more than Daniel Marcos does, but because Barcelos, for whatever reason, is not in the UFC's A side of things, even in this fight, he was not the A side, you might end up seeing him fight against Daniel Marcos, and that could be a close one. That could be a back-and-forth one. I'd like to see it. I'm very intrigued by the fight. I recognize the level of that, but that fight will go underappreciated by the masses. Ricky Simón, man, so close, yet so far. It's like almost climbing his way back and then back down the ladder again, man. I don't think all hope is lost for somebody like Ricky Simón. I think it's time to book him versus Said Nurmagomedov. I like that fight. I like him and Said a lot. They can do it in the Middle East too. Let's do that fight. Also, Farid Basharat surging up the ranks. Like Basharat's close to top 15. Even a John Matsumoto is getting close for another challenge. Split decision, lost to Font. Beat Miles Johns, granted split decision. Fucking if Brady Heastan could put some more wins together. There's some guys, man. The damn bantamweight division has some underrated savages. And Peyton Talbot is obviously in the UFC's good graces because he's getting the big shake. But he got dominated by Hani Barcelos so bad. Like, he shouldn't be fighting a top 10 contender in Henry Cejudo, but it doesn't matter. That's the UFC's decision, and they view him as the A side. So, obviously, he gets that push. Next fight. Hyder Amil got exposed by Jamall Emmers. No nice way to put this. Hyder Amil was exposed. Hyder Amil had a pretty good first round. It was a good back-and-forth brawl. He was putting pressure on Emmers. And Hyder Amil's game is built upon breaking people. Why we believe in Hyder Amil is his relentlessness. He's going to be able to push a 3-round pace. He's going to be able to go hard, and he's going to gas you out and wear you down. The opposite happened here. Jamall Emmers outdogged Hyder Amil, broke him, and dominated the second and third round with grappling. I was blown away by Hyder Amil nearly vomiting in the corner, and during the fight, like this whimpering. It was insane to me to see Jamall Emmers just outdog a guy whose entire game is built on outdogging people. Wow. Jamall Emmers looked good. Jamall Emmers looked really good. Jamall Emmers looked as good as ever. I think he looked better than ever. I think this was the best Jamall Emmers we'd ever seen. Best cardio we've ever seen from him. Best grappling control we've ever seen from him. It was a dope performance. Hyder Amil, my God, what a fucking tragic downfall, right? Goes from 11-0 earlier this year to now 11-2, and me like questioning everything. Like, what? That's Hyder Amil? That's not the Hyder Amil that we thought he was. The reality versus what you actually got is a crazy difference. Now, I'm looking at this division, and I like pondering, you know, what could be next for somebody like Jamall Emmers. At the end of the day, he's won 2 fights in a row. He's a very capable fighter at 145 pounds. Byron Santos is fighting Mohamed Naimov. I kind of like the idea of the winner of that fight versus Jamall Emmers. Of course, possibility. The UFC is like, we don't want to do that. There's also a fight against a guy in Gabriel Santos. That could be put together. Santos got 2 wins in a row, knocked down bad by Jack Jenkins, but ends up submitting him. He's a hot prospect. I like Gabriel Santos. I think he's a future contender. I'm going to tell you guys, I think Gabriel Santos is top 15, but he needs to prove it. I think he beats Jamall Emmers. I like the fight. I like that matchup a lot. I like that to build Santos, and I think he can handle this Emmers. Now, for the side of Hyder Amil, where the fuck is he going? Because this is the tragic downfall. This happened. This is it. Hyder Amil crashes and burns quickly. You know, I have to tell you, Darren Elkins, Hyder Amil is the fight to be had. Hyder Amil's coming off 2 losses in a row. Darren Elkins coming off the Julian Erosa loss. I like matching those two up against one another. Let's do Darren Elkins and Hyder Amil. It's guaranteed to be a fun one. At this point, like, who cares who wins? Darren Elkins pulls it off. Amil loses 3 in a row. Holy shit. Or he wins. Wow, I took out a fucking grizzled vet. A guy who's 19-11 in the UFC, but a guy who's been around for, 30 pro fights in the UFC. 30 in the UFC. I like that idea. I like Darren Elkins versus Hyder Amil next. I think that should be next for him. Disappointed to see him get outdogged, and it makes me think there's a chance that he's getting outdogged by the side of Darren Elkins if they face off too. Yeah, Hyder Amil, unfortunately, rough standing, bro. Tough loss. This is a bad one. This is a bad one, man. It's like Jamall Emmers. It's not that he's a bad fighter to lose to, but it's how he lost. Getting outdogged. When your whole selling point is that you outdog people and you're outdogged, it's like when you have a guy who's a boxing specialist and just gets his face boxed off. It just changes your whole view of the person. That's what happened with Hyder Amil here. Main card. If you guys haven't yet, hit that like button. If you're new to the channel, subscribe. Christian Leroy Duncan, Marco Tulio. I literally want to give a standing ovation. Like, I'm going to stand up. It was fucking sick. Shout out to the Propaholic shirt. It was sick. It was sick. Christian Leroy Duncan hit the spinning elbow on Tulio that sliced him open early round 1. Competitive moments, but Tulio was buckled a little bit. Uncomfortable a little bit. Taken down from Tulio a little bit, but Leroy Duncan scrambled in reverse and ended up on top. I said this during my stream. I said, I think that if Leroy Duncan can keep up this type of pace, like the first round that he's having is world class. That's top 15 first round. Round 2, it looks like Tulio's starting to find some momentum. It looks like Tulio's starting to figure it out. Leroy Duncan ends up buckling him with the spinning back fist, all over him with shots, flatlines Marco Tulio. Tulio's laying out cold violence by Leroy Duncan, puts him flat out on his face. Christian Leroy Duncan showed out in this fight. This was not just a win. This was a fucking statement. Christian Leroy Duncan is living up to the early expectations now. And a performance like this against a Tulio who's from Shoot the Box, a gym that's been surging as of late. And honestly, Tulio had looked to be, at the very least, a good banger. And Leroy Duncan to fucking dismantle him? Holy shit. Holy shit is how I feel. That was a breakout win for Leroy Duncan. Like, he deserves something big. Like, he deserves a fight to get excited about. To destroy Tulio like this. Fight before that, the Eric Anders fight, the Padilla fight, has 3 wins in a row now. Most recent loss is Gregory Rodriguez, who's a top-level contender. I mean, I'm looking at the division, and I'm kind of liking the idea of Tulio versus Shara Bullet, but they're going to protect Shara so bad. They protect him so bad. They protect him. They protect Shara Bullet. They don't want to risk their golden goose, Shara Bullet. But they should do Shara Bullet versus Leroy Duncan. Shara Bullet should have to fight somebody good, you know? I feel like we're looking at a Leroy Duncan that is 1 win away from the top 15, but the top 15 is pretty star-studded right now. Joe Pyfer at 15, Vittoria at 14, Costa 13, Delidze 12, Page 10, tied at 10 with Cannonier, which doesn't make sense because Cannonier lost to him. So why would they be tied at 10? I don't know. UFC rankings are stupid sometimes. It should be Page 10, Cannonier 11. But regardless, Leroy Duncan could end up fighting a Jared Cannonier and winning. Leroy Duncan versus Apollo Costa is a sick fight. But I think a Shara Bullet fight is more sensible. I just don't know if that's what we'll get. It's tough to say. We could end up seeing him versus Edmund Shabazian. It's hard to matchmake with these guys that are on the cusp of top 15, but also it's kind of a crowded division. Now for Tulio, tough L to take, man. He fucking went out bad. Holy shit. I think they should consider rebooking a fight between him and Michel Pereira, who's coming off some bad losses. You could even argue that he should fight maybe a GM3 Kyle Dawkins loser, especially if it's Kyle Dawkins. Yeah, bro, he put himself in a tough standing. I mean, there's a Brad Tavares fight. There's still a lot of good matchups for him. Like, you know, I don't think it's a game set match for Tulio. Azamat Bakoyev, who just got exposed, but this was a fucking tough pill to swallow. He got fucked up badly by Leroy Duncan. Sick win for Leroy Duncan, and I think one more fight and then a top 15 chance. And if all things were more fair, maybe a top 15 shot, or excuse me, a top 20-ish shot against Shara Bullet. But they be protecting Shara Bullet, man. They do. They protect Shara Bullet, so might not be. But I'd like to see it, especially the styles that they both have with stand-up. Would definitely be a fun fight. Let's keep running. Next fight on the card. The Savage Dog Lock. Taco Padilla comes through. I called this earlier in the week. Plus 176 dog. He opens as a dog, closes as a motherfucking favorite around minus 115, minus 120. Taco Padilla showed why he is the definition of a fucking savage dog lock. Round one, he dealt with some big shots from Bonfim. There were some strikes in his face. Bonfim was attacking, throwing power shots. But Padilla never really wilted in confidence, kept pressure on him against the cage, even ended up under Bonfim in round number one and potentially getting his back taken. He escapes, gets back up. Round ends. Bonfim landed bigger strikes in round one. I thought Bonfim did a little more, though Padilla had good calf kicks and was pretty sharp defensively. I still think Bonfim got the first. Round two, Padilla's still walking him down. Bonfim is throwing hard but slowing, and Padilla keeps coming. And he keeps coming. And Padilla works him with some body shots. Big knee to the body. Hurts him to the body. Comes after him. Attacking. Throwing shots. And like Bonfim, he wilted to the pressure of Padilla. He broke against the cage. Ends up down. Padilla beating him up to the body. Throwing some ground and pound to the head. Bonfim rolls over to the backside position. Just some shots. Bang, 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 bang. And Bonfim's not moving. He's like, I'm good. Fight stopped. Ismael Bonfim wilts again. Underdog pick that was beautiful. I said, this guy's overrated. He's been overrated. And Taco Padilla was undefeated in the UFC. I don't understand why he's an underdog. And he proved why he should not have been an underdog all week. Taco Padilla stops Ismael Bonfim in the second round. Dominance. Dominance. One-sided beating, one-way traffic, and a dope-ass performance. I already DM'd Taco Padilla, and he liked the message because we've been in talks before. I'm going to try to get him on the show this week. So tune into the Lunchtime Lives. I'll have more details on Monday, and we'll get a Taco Padilla interview finally made. We've been waiting on this for a while. It's been in talks for several months. He put it on, Ismael Bonfim, and Taco Padilla is a problem at 155 because he does everything right. Defensively sound, has a good leg kick game, has good elbows on the inside, attacks the body well, can wrestle, has a submission threat, has ground and pound, has cardio, good fight IQ. He's got the makings of a guy that can definitely get some nice wins in this lightweight division, and he's unbeaten inside of the UFC, and he's on a 7-fight win streak as a pro. The definition of a savage dog lock. Now, of course, he is in a fucking stacked weight class. But there is a fight that speaks to me for him. There is a fight that I think just kind of makes too much sense not to consider booking next. What about him versus Rafa Garcia? Is that too much of a jump up the ranks for Taco Padilla, who took out Bonfim, who at one point was the prospect everybody was talking about? Or stay ready. Maybe he fills in on short notice and somehow fights Mauricio Hufi and pulls off an upset there. I feel like a Rafa Garcia fight is sick because Rafa Garcia's got the dog in him. Rafa Garcia's coming off the biggest win of his life, stopping Jared Gordon. Jared Gordon got hit by a car the day before, but still Jared Gordon. I kind of love the idea of Rafa Garcia, Taco Padilla, like an underrated, just savage dog fight where they're both going to go after it. I think he's pretty close to the top 15. It's going to be hard to deny him soon. If they don't want to do a matchup like that, you can consider a fight between him and somebody maybe like a Michael Johnson, a grizzled vet who's on a nice 3-fight win streak. I don't think that is a terrible fight either. Potentially, depending upon the timeline of return, you could look at a Ludwig Klein fight for him. There's options. I think he deserves something big, though. Ludwig Klein's probably going to be out a while with that broken ankle, so probably doesn't line up. The most sensible option, though, is the one that I listed off first. It's him versus Rafa Garcia. Remains to be seen if that would actually take place, but I like the idea of the UFC putting that one together, and I think it's a pretty damn good fight. Now, for Ismael Bonfim, tough, bro. 2-3 in the UFC. I think he's overrated. He has that little bit of hype that like forces him into kind of big fights. What about him versus the grizzled vet? Okay, Mr. Most UFC fights ever, Jim Miller. Is that crazy? Him versus Jim Miller? Kind of gives Jim Miller a chance to get a W going, or Bonfim the biggest chance of his life to get a fucking win against a guy that has been killing it for years. I don't know. Him versus Jim Miller kind of jumps out to me. I don't think that's a terrible idea. Either that or Matt Frivola. I'm also thinking Padilla. What about Kawe Fernandez? The thing is, though, like Kawe's coming off a nice win over Hardwick, but like he was a huge favorite. Padilla is winning all these fights as a fucking underdog. So that's why I think he deserves a fight that breaks him into the top 15. Like a fight that's one away from top 15. Now you're 5-0 in the UFC. It's top 15 time. Taco deserves something big. I think so. And I think he'll get it. And I think a Rafa Garcia fight is kind of the perfect fight in that direction. Obviously, stay ready. Maybe, you know, if Hoofy has a fight scheduled, something falls through, if he could step in and fight Hoofy, I like that matchup for him because he's got a big grappling advantage. I think he could give Hoofy a lot of trouble with his cardio, too. Taco Padilla can mix it up with some of these better guys in the world. Stylistically, there's some matchups that I like for him. And we'll see what happens heading into 2026, but definitely one to watch in this UFC lightweight division. And I'd say probably the most underrated lightweight on the UFC roster right now. So massive win for Taco Padilla as an underdog, my savage dog lock, and just an underdog winner 4 times in a row in the UFC. I think now they're going to start giving him some respect on the lines. Next fight, Uros Medic made easy work of Muslim Salikhov in the featured fight. I pick flipped from Salikhov to Uros Medic after seeing the weigh-ins because Salikhov looked a little melted. He's been fighting outside the U.S., stateside. I'm sus on him stateside. I don't give a fuck. Look at his stateside wins as of late. Santiago Ponzinibbio split decision, okay? And then Randy Brown knockout loss, and now a Uros Medic knockout loss. Stateside, Salikhov is not as good when you have him in the Middle East. You have him in Asia. He looks a little more jacked. He looks a little stronger, and he's putting on these sick performances. Uros Medic looks sharp. Stand-up was on point. Knockout quick. Easy money against Muslim Salikhov. And it was a breakout win. Like, Uros looked fucking good. He's taken some L's in the UFC. He hasn't had a perfect UFC run. Obviously, he had that really bad loss to Punahele Soriano 3 fights ago. But now he's 1-2 straight, and he didn't get dropped this fight, which I think is a positive because he was getting dropped left and right. Takes out a Salikhov, who is, you know, the king of Kung Fu himself. Had called for a fight against Wonder Boy, did not get it, but still, a Salikhov was on a 3-fight winning streak. Like, this is a win that means something for Uros Medic. This is a win that puts him in an interesting spot. You know, it's hard to deny him a big chance next. I kind of love the idea of him versus Michael Chiesa. A complete contrarian matchup. The striker versus the grappler. Can he pass the test of a guy in Michael Chiesa who is a fucking nightmare to deal with wrestling-wise? If he strikes with Chiesa, I think he could land big. But Chiesa is going to be in his face, going to be looking to wrestle him up, and I think he could wrestle him up. I feel like Michael Chiesa and Uros Medic is perfect, and I think there's a chance they put it together. For Muslim Salikhov, disappointing loss. he's in one of those spots where like him versus Chaos Williams makes sense. Him versus Max Griffin makes sense. Something along those lines for Muslim Salikhov next. But at 41 years old, I'm wondering how many more fights this freak has left in him. Knowing Salikhov, he's probably got at least 3 more. He's 22-6. I'm sure he wants to hit that 30, pro MMA fight mark. Let me double check and make sure he doesn't have any no contest on the resume. 9-5 in the UFC, 22-6 overall. Yeah, I think there's a real chance that he goes out and does 2 more. I think 2 more makes sense. Maybe even Themba Garimbo, who just lost last week. The loss to Uros Medic, like if you just think of Uros Medic getting knocked out by Punahele Soriano, it's the end of the world. But if you really think about it, like you eliminate the Soriano fight, he's got wins over Omar Morales, Matt Semmelsberger, Tim Means, Gilbert Urbina, which was too easy for him, Muslim Salikhov. And then obviously a Soriano KO loss where he got caught and Urabai beat him. And Urabai is a fantastic grappler. But the reason I'm posing the Michael Chiesa fight is like, hey, let's see if you can stop a grappler this time. He couldn't then, but what about now? And, they've been feeding him strikers. Maybe we test him with somebody that can tangle on the ground a little bit. I like that idea. We'll see what happens. Big performance and a savage pick flip. My pick flips on point. Destroying it. When the pick flip happens, you guys fucking take notice. Okay? Let's keep it jumping. Co-main event. Easy money. Easy. Joseph Morales wins by submission. Fucking sick jiu-jitsu, man. Like the crucifix into the setup, into the ghillie. It was all planned. He wanted Matt Schnell to do that so he could strangle the fuck out of him. 2 minutes, 54 seconds. Joseph Morales submits Matt Schnell with ease. I thought he'd win by submission. He made it look easy as hell. Morales is in a spot right now that's interesting because he's really a surging prospect up the ranks. Won the Ultimate Fighter. Now taps Matt Schnell. Quick Randy did get taken down, but easy reversal into the dominance. Like, the takedown really wasn't a big deal. As soon as they hit the ground, it was game, set, match. Schnell had nothing for him. Schnell should honestly consider retiring, but enough about Schnell. We'll talk about Schnell after. As the UFC flyweight division goes, it's one of those divisions where if you get a couple, it's stacked, but you get a couple, you can make some waves. And I'm like, okay, Joseph Morales beat a guy, Matt Schnell, that's been around for a very long time, but a guy in Matt Schnell who's not top caliber. He's a prospect to keep an eye on, but again, he hasn't had a win against like a guy that's looked good in a long time, Now, Joseph Morales is not some typical prospect that's 20 years old. Joseph Morales is 31, so it's like push towards the top now, and that's it. I look at the division, and I'm like, is it crazy if a fight between Joseph Morales and Edgar Chairez was next? Like, that's a sensible fight to make next. Edgar Chairez is a fucking dangerous man, good everywhere. That's a test and a half. Wrestling advantage Morales, but Chairez an absolute dog. I like the idea of the UFC considering it. Don't know if they will, but something that jumped out to me. Could they move him up to a different type of matchup? Maybe against Suma Derji, who, actually lost to Matt Schnell back in 2022, but it's a long time ago. And he nearly knocked Matt Schnell out. But since then has won 2 straight fights and looks good with his striking, but suspect grappling. I think a guy that Morales could potentially buzzsaw. Depends what the UFC wants to do with him. He's getting up to that top 15 caliber, but he's going to need another win before he can break into that real top 15. But he's getting there. He's definitely somebody to keep an eye on. He's not far, far away. 1 to 2 more wins. If he goes out, let's say he goes out and beat Chairez, and then he goes out and fights, somebody closing the gap. But when you start looking at the guys closing the gap, my God, Andre Lima's a fucking problem. Him versus Andre Lima, that's a tough fight. Jesus Aguilar, winnable fight for him. But like you look up the ranks, even Jose Ocho, a power hitter, dangerous. 1 and 2 in the UFC, though. I don't know about that matchup being had. I think I like my take first. I think the Jesus Aguilar fight makes the most sense. Or, excuse me, Edgar Chairez fight, not the Jesus Aguilar fight. I think that probably makes the most sense right now. We'll see if they end up deciding to go for it. They might push him to something bigger. They might push him to something else. I'm not trying to, throw him out there and match him up with guys coming off L's. But there's a possibility that he ends up fighting like an Ode Osborne, who's, kind of tricky for prospects to take on with his length for sure. But big grappling advantage for Joseph Morales. Now, for Matt Schnell, we got to have a serious talk. I think it's retirement, but he won't. I kind of love it, bro. Him versus Lazy Boy. Matt Schnell versus Ronaldo Rodriguez could be a pretty fire fight. I think probably Ronaldo Rodriguez would find a way to beat him. But I don't hate that matchup. If Matt Schnell wants to keep fighting, I'd give him like a Ronaldo Rodriguez next. Let's keep on moving up. Next fight on the card. Well, it's actually weird, though, because Matt Schnell, Ronaldo Rodriguez, what I'm talking about, Morales versus Ode, and Ode has that loss to Ronaldo. Yeah, that's kind of ugly. I don't know. But, like, there's still hype on Ode. Ode's so much better than Ronaldo. I don't know how the fuck he ended up selling in that fight, looking at it now. I don't know. Morales Shires makes sense, though. We'll see what happens. Let's jump to the main event. Make sure you guys hit that like button. If you're new to the channel, hit that subscribe button, too. Closing in on 55,000 subscribers. Gabriel Bonfim versus Randy Brown Masterclass. Gabriel Bonfim exploited the weakness. He destroyed Randy Brown's lead leg, mauled the calf, all welts around the calf and shin area of Brown. He was getting chopped apart. And Bonfim landed some punches, but the first round was majority of him showcasing the kicks. Didn't need to grapple. Was able to out-kickbox Randy Brown. Brown was trying to catch him with straights, but it was like awkward overextensions because he was just getting chopped down and desperate. Some shots over the top from Bonfim. Nice left hook. Some moments for Brown with some straights. But overall, it was the Bonfim kicks that were the story of the first round. And that continued into the second round. Bonfim attacking the legs, chopping them. Pom, pom, pom. Big moment in the clinch. Perfect knee. Down goes Randy Brown. Hits the mat. Referee jumps in right away. As the referee is jumping in, Brown is bringing his guard up. The referee calls the fight. Brown then protesting the stoppage. It's a weird circumstance because I think he was done. He hit the canvas, head on the canvas, is literally staring to the other side out of it. And then as the referee comes in, he wakes up. And then he's like putting his guard up. But he was out for a second there, just trailing off into the distance. I completely see why Mark Smith stopped the fight. If it continues, Bonfim is going to pulverize him with ground and pound. The reason Bonfim took a second to get there and the ref really just jumped in before Bonfim pounded him out is Bonfim hits the knee, knocks him out. He slipped as he did it. So he's getting up to go over him. Mark Smith calls it right away. Brown, he got up to his feet, but like he used the cage to stand. His eyes didn't look fully there. Then he's protesting. What the fuck? No, I was good to go. He went flat out. Head hit the canvas, staring off to the right. It's not like it was he went down and he was just turtling it up and he was trying to get up right away. He was out cold. He woke up as the referee was calling the fight. So if Bonfim does start pounding him, he's probably out worse. I get it. He wants the chance. It's a UFC main event. I see the complaint of the stoppage. But from the side of the official Mark Smith, I have a guy who just fell straight back, is looking the other direction as his head hit the canvas. And then, oh my God, I stop it. And then he wakes up. I think the referee stoppage was fair and justified. I fully see why Mark Smith went towards that to protect the fighter. I see it. If it was maybe, you know, he's going to give him a second, Bonfim just pulverizes him. It was done. Brown was out. And from the ref's perspective, that was a knockout and a perfect stoppage. And then, yes, he wakes up as you're calling the fight. As Bonfim is moved away and the fight is waved off, yes, Brown is putting his guard up. But let's say the ref never steps in. Bonfim is going to get to him as Brown is putting the guard up. Pop, pop, pop. It's done. It was over. Bonfim with the biggest win of his life, a sick knockout, a violent win. Holy shit. Holy shit. A lot of people were writing Bonfim off because he had a tough fight against Wonder Boy. I don't understand this narrative. Wonder Boy's a fucking monster. One of the trickiest styles to deal with. Yeah, his karate is hell. And then he goes out, destroys a Randy Brown like that. I think that puts some respect back on the Bonfim name and shows not just a grappler. He can strike too, and he's 28. He's getting so much better. Oh, my God. Gabriel Bonfim is good. I was blown away. This was a fucking breakout win for him. And when I think about his division, I'm like, okay, welterweight. Bonfim sitting at 14. Took out Brown. That was like probably the number 16, 17 guy. He's in a spot where he can make some waves. He called out Colby Covington. It's the fight to make. Now, Colby may deny that fight. He might not want to do it. I think Colby's in town. I'm waiting for the White House. Well, okay, how about we make a deal with you? I'll give you the White House, Colby, but you're fighting this fucking killer. I like the idea of Bonfim getting the chance to also defend Brazil. How much shit has Colby talked about Brazil over the years? And Bonfim, he buzzsaws him. Now, of course, Gilbert Burns, Colby Covington is also a cool fight in a Battle of Legends. But is the UFC rather going the route of Battle of Legends, or let me build a prospect off of your name and have Bonfim maul Colby Covington and then rush him up to the superstardom? Not saying he's going to be a star, but a very, hyped up Brazilian fighter with good skills everywhere and could be a problem in the top 10. He's not even 30. He's 28. They could pump the brakes. They could go a different route. There's a possibility that we see a Bonfim fight a guy like a D-Rod who's coming off of the big win against Kevin Holland. And that is a very winnable fight for Bonfim. I think he beats Kevin Holland. I think he beats Mike Malott. They could do Mike Malott, Bonfim. But the main event, the knockout, the call-out, it kind of perfectly lines up a Colby fight. For me, I want to see Bonfim versus Colby Covington. He already has a win. Whether you think it's controversial or not, he beat Wonderboy on paper. Colby was dreaming of fighting a Wonderboy, but they're like, we're not giving you Wonderboy. Are they really in the Colby Covington business in 2025 and then into 2026 at this point? I think Bonfim versus Covington is a fight to make, man. And I like the idea of those two going after it. We already got the call out, and he gets to defend Brazil, and let's say we do it at the fucking White House card. Very cool circumstance on the horizon. If not, D-Rod. Now, for Randy Brown, tough L to take, man. Randy Brown's so good, but just, not that good. Just a little penultimate step behind the true best of the best. He's still in a spot where he can, make some waves in a good fight. I'd be interested in seeing Randy Brown versus Kevin Holland, regardless of Holland's 2-fight losing streak, but he just lost to, top 15 and top 14 guys in his past two. It's kind of a sensible fight to match those two up. Granted, last week I was talking about Phil Rowe versus Kevin Holland, but Rowe's a big step down for Holland. I think him and Randy Brown is a fun fight. I'd like to see how the matchup looks. Both guys, long limbs, similar styles. They're different, but there's similarities there. Both got good hands, both decent on the ground. I like the idea of it. I don't know, man. I mean, I'm looking at the division, and I'm like, they may force him into a fight against somebody else. Like, who, though? Are they going to do Randy Brown, Neil Magny, maybe? But then they could do Neil Magny versus the Kevin Holland's on 2 losses in a row. Maybe not. Randy Brown coming off the L, Neil Magny coming off the win. It kind of doesn't make sense. You get where I'm going with it? Kind of think Randy Brown, Kevin Holland is probably the fight to make now. And I'd be interested in watching it for sure. When I'm looking at the rankings, like that's the fight that jumps out to me. And then Bonfim versus Colby. Obviously, if they're not going the Colby route, I'm fine. Go Bonfim versus Mike Malott D-Rod. But they really want to match up the Brazilian prospect and the Canadian prospect in the top 15. Do they want to risk hurting one of the markets? I don't think so. I think D-Rod, unfortunately, would be sacrificed to one of those guys as opposed to those two fighting each other. We'll see what happens. Randy Brown, not in that top 15, definitely top 20, definitely good fights on the horizon. I was going to say a Wonderboy fight, but I don't know if they're going to do that for a Wonderboy. Tough to say. We shall see. But Randy Brown versus Kevin Holland is a fight that I like. And Bonfim versus Covington, I think, is a pretty dope matchup. If you're not trying to protect anybody, I think those are good matchups to be had. Now, overall, I want to review the picks. As far as the parlays, the good safer parlays hit plus 270, plus 230, plus 188, plus 157, plus 105, minus 158, and the overs in the ladies' fight. So like Morales, Cavalcanti, Bueno, Silva over. The Lock City parlay, Morales, Marcos, right? Morales, Marcos, Cavalcanti, Bueno, Silva over. Morales, Marcos, Cavalcanti. Morales, Marcos, Cavalcanti over. Gomes, Torres over. Or Gomes, Pennington over. Morales, Marcos, Cavalcanti, and then Gomes, Torres over. Just the Cavalcanti straight. So those lineups were pretty solid. The D-Gen shit unfortunately missed. Hyder and Amil sold it. It is what it is. As far as the picks, 8 wins, 4 losses. Finished the card on a 4-fight win streak. Savage dog lock hit. I was very happy about that. Hit with Bonfim here on the money. Good prediction. Morales, perfect prediction there. The Uros Medic pick flip was beautiful, and the knockout call was money. Taco Padilla handling business as the Savage dog lock was perfect. Obviously took the L, had Tulio, but Leroy Duncan showed him levels. Fucking respect, man. Fight before that, Jamall Emmers upsets Hyder Amil and breaks him. That was impressive. Good win there for Emmers. Amil, I'm taking on the chin, man. taking on the chin like Tulio. Barcelos absolutely outdogs Ricky Simón, puts on a good performance, gets a nice win. Took a tough L on that one. One with Bueno Silva over Cavalcanti, perfect pick. One with Hokit over Gimenis, perfect pick. Lost there. I thought Tisha maybe would pull off a split decision. I feel like an idiot now. I should have been an easy 9-3. Gomes goes out and dominates the fight. But hey, the over 2.5 was a confident call. I look at the bright side of all things. Daniel Marco's confident pick comes through over Miles Johns. And then the Zach Reese pick over Jackson McVey hits. So 8 wins, 4 losses on the night. I'm pretty happy with it. 1, 2, 2-1, 3-1, 4-1. 4-2, 4-3, 4-4, 5-4, 6-4, 7-4, 8-4. Yep, 8-4. Good record. Good record. And especially finish out strong with 4 straight wins, main event pick, savage dog lock, and the pick flip. Those are 3 very crucial and important calls coming through at the end. So I'm very happy with how UFC Vegas 111 went, and I'm so excited for UFC 322. All right, I've got the Propaholics shirt on. If you don't know what it is, tune in every Thursday, 8 p.m. Eastern time to Propaholics. I'm telling you, you won't be disappointed. UFC 322 fight week. Also, my birthday week. My birthday is Wednesday, November 12th. So, celebrate with your boy during the live stream. Make sure you guys smash the like button here. Hit the subscribe button if it's your first time watching. Turn the post notifications on. You don't want to miss a video. You don't want to miss a live stream. I got a ton of content coming on the channel soon enough. The merch will be on the freaking table. So, keep it locked in with me. I love each and every one of you savages. Thank you all for the consistent and continued support as we get close to that 55,000 subscribers. I'm excited. W in the comments if you got nothing to say, but I do want to hear from you guys in the comments. Let me know what you thought of the picks, of the fights, etc., of the stoppage in the main event. Do you think this stoppage was early in the main event? Or do you agree with me? Brown was staring off into the distance, bro. He was in another planet. Ref saved him. He would have got pounded out. Come on. But let me know. I want to hear from you. Whether you disagree or agree, I want to hear from you. And if you haven't, hype the video. That's the new thing YouTube has. Make sure you hype the video as well. Thanks for watching, everybody. I'll see you all in the next one. Much love. Good night. Peace out.